That's all right. Just work with it. It's
So the title, are you ready?
ready.
Okay. So the title of my message, is 8 Qualities of a Good Leader. So the first example that most of us have of leaders are our parents. So I want to tell you a Thanksgiving story that happened to me when I was 14 years old. It's kind of a fun story. It's a Thanksgiving story, and I thought I would start with that. So when I was 14 years old, my world seemed to turn upside down. Let me explain. It was the fall of 1969. Gas was 29 cents a gallon, if some of you could remember that. The first man had landed on the moon, and the Beatles were the rage. Boeing had laid off much of its workforce in Seattle. They even had a billboard that said, "The last one out of Seattle, please turn out the lights." My parents, my younger sister, and 2 brothers and I were living in the suburb of Bellevue when it was mostly back in the woods. It was very small. My mother was a nurse, and my dad was a school principal in a nearby community, and we lived in a nice neighborhood and had same friends and school since we were little. One day, my dad was hanging a picture for his secretary and fell off the ladder and broke his leg. And really bad. And so he had been working on his master's degree, and the powers that be told him that if he didn't finish his master's degree, he was going to lose all the hours that he had put in over the years to get his master's degree. So they decided that they were going to move to Eastern Washington so my dad could go to Eastern and finish his degree in a year. So it was a huge, huge decision. So that meant that we'd be leaving all of our friends and the home we knew. And for me, it was really, really scary, because I was a teenager and I had wild emotions going every which way, and I was going to leave my friends and the school that I knew, and so it was very hard. But anyway, we found a 100-year-old farmhouse with no insulation, except for, I remember, newspapers on the walls as insulation. No heater except in the dining room. It was an old furnace that kind of looks like the big square monster with teeth. Yeah. But it was warm, so we would get all dressed, or mostly dressed, and run downstairs and put our shoes and our coats on and eat breakfast and then go to school. So my dad was going to classes full-time and working at the campus grade school part-time to make ends meet. My mom was working full-time at the nursing home as the charge nurse. So my sister and I took over the cooking and the cleaning, so we kind of grew up fast at that point. And this is kind of fun. I think, Adele, you would enjoy this, but the classes at my new school were mostly taught by doctors and people who had master's degree. They had 3-quarter system, which was quite different way back then. And I remember we had a hippie art teacher who taught us how to do the potter's wheel and paint psychedelic paintings. So our home ec classes taught us to sew, to knit, crochet, how to bake and cook. So it was pretty exciting. And one of my favorite class was PE, because our teachers were Olympic athletes on the trampoline. So we got to learn trampoline, and that was back in 1969 when you didn't have stuff like that. So that was really fun. But I remember that, my folks didn't have any money. I mean, we were very poor, and of course we didn't realize that we were poor because we were always poor. But this created financial stress, and it was tough. And I remember that my mom said, you know, I don't know if we're going to be able to afford to buy a turkey for Christmas or for Thanksgiving. And so she got down on her knees and she prayed that God would provide something. So it was the week of Thanksgiving, and we woke up and there was snow everywhere. And it was so much fun. We got all bundled up and we decided we were going to go out and play in the snow. And my dad, he decided he was going to go hunting for a goose. So he took my brothers and they went hunting for a goose. So they came back a couple hours later with the biggest goose I think I've ever seen.
Wow.
Biggest Canadian goose I've ever seen. So they took a picture of it from tail to beak. It was as tall as I was. And I remember trying to hold it up for the picture, and it was too heavy to hold up.
Wow.
But that was the most amazing Thanksgiving. We didn't have turkey, but we had goose.
Yes.
And it was my mother's faith and my dad's action that showed me what leaders can be.
Yes. Thank you.
I'll never forget that Thanksgiving. That was very memorable.
Yes.
So let's talk now about what makes a good leader. Do you know what makes a leader? Do you know the characteristics of a good leader? Have any of